I'm making this video to discuss my experience playing the much awaited and now much derided The Last of Us Part 2. Obviously, everyone will have had different experiences playing this game, and many will have vastly different opinions to those I'm about to express. Of course, this video contains spoilers for the game, so if you don't want to know any of them, click away now. That said, let's get into it. Now, while playing this game, I genuinely was enjoying it, and was interested to find out what happened next at each stage, but only really when playing as Ellie. I was far less invested for the Abby parts, and in fact, often quite bored. I suspect that perhaps if you didn't play the first game, you may very much enjoy this one, since you'd have no prior connection to the franchise. This could also be the case if you played the first game, but didn't fall in love with it, in the same way those of us in the ardent fan community did. I raise this because it may account for some proportion of the overwhelmingly positive reviews from the big reviewing outlets. Or not. It could just be that many reviewers did play and love the first game, but just genuinely think this new instalment is worthy of high praise. It's probably a bit of both, with other factors mixed in too. But I don't want to get into criticising critics for their reviews. That's not what this video is about. Although there are certainly interesting discussions about the discrepancy between the critic reception and consumer reception of the game to be had. But this isn't the video for that. Next we come to the new characters. Let's discuss Dina. This character is supposed to be Ellie's love interest. But again, this is just how it came across to me. There is absolutely no romantic chemistry between her and Ellie at all. I'm reminded of this every time they call each other babe. It feels so out of place. Quite honestly, I'm not even sure I knew they were meant to be in a relationship until one of them first casually said that. They'd had a romantic encounter beforehand in a cutscene, but they didn't feel like they'd actually started a relationship after that, unless I missed or forgot the part where an official relationship was proclaimed. They just about feel like familiar acquaintances in all honesty. A lot of the interactions between them had the vibe of a cheap soap opera, quite frankly, with adultery taking place and discussions about who kissed whom and all this trivial stuff I have no interest in whatsoever within the context of this game. To be clear, there's not necessarily anything wrong with these types of subplots in general. They certainly have their place and can be very engaging within the right context, but this game wasn't it, for me at least. After the type of relationship dynamics and the weight of the problems the characters had to deal with in the first game, this felt very out of place and so utterly tedious and banal. The non-linear story format was an issue too. I have no problem with that format conceptually, but I didn't find it to be used appropriately here. Related to this, any emotional investment I felt for the characters within the flashback scenes was completely undercut, because a lot of the time it's already been revealed what happens to them after these flashbacks. My investment in these moments presented, or moments such as these, is tied to the understanding of the fact that the characters are learning from their interactions in these moments, learning from the consequences of the mistakes they're making or have made, and can then reach a new place of transformation, for the better or the worse, by a later point in the game. But the fact that the end of Joel's time in the game, for example, is shown right at the start before any of these flashbacks which depict the moments pushing him down a path of change or growth, leaves me feeling almost completely disconnected from them. Barely invested in them at all, other than in some vague nostalgic way which is stifled to the point of near negation by the jarring, abrasive presentation of the events up to these points. There are so many times during those flashbacks where it seemed like the game had been assembled in the wrong order. A linear format for this same story, or at least a more predominantly linear format, would have worked so much better for this game, in my opinion. At least that's what I thought during the playing process. By the time I'd reached the end of the game, some of these earlier flashback moments did pay off to some small degree for me. Certainly more so than I thought they were going to before reaching the end. Overall, I still didn't really care for the structure, and think a linear format would have better suited this game. However, it does go to show that it's worth playing to the end of the game to experience some kind of payoff for all that came before, even if much of what comes before feels tedious. There are probably some who would say that having to reach the very end of the game in order to experience some kind of enjoyment or positive sentiment for the many hours of gameplay and content which came before is a failure of the game, and that players should be immersed or invested all the way through. rather than having to get to the very end of a 25-hour experience in order to maybe get some kind of payoff from it all. I don't know if I agree with that or not. I probably just about lean to the side of not agreeing with it for various reasons which would be far too tangential to get into now. However, it's certainly not an invalid complaint. So, I've presented a list of positives and negatives so far, but did I actually like the game? Well, quite honestly, I don't know at the moment. I liked some things about it, while disliking others. Unfortunately, I would certainly say it's a huge step down from the first game. But it took some big risks, and there was clearly a great deal of effort put into making this game a disturbing, interesting experience, whether or not it succeeds in all regards here. Clearly, for some people, it does. Honestly, to start with, I was enjoying the gameplay, whilst enjoying little else about the game. During the whole section where you play as Abby, right up until you have to fight Ellie, I was really hating the game. I found this whole Abby section boring, and it was already abundantly clear what the point of it was, this being to draw some equivalence between Abby and Ellie, and make the player experience the fact that they have similar backgrounds, and are dealing with the same struggles in the post-apocalyptic world, etc. So the fact that this intention was so obvious right from the start of this section only made it more tedious. Although I may have been vaguely aware of some minor elements related to this from the leaks, I don't think that's what made me feel this way about this section. It seemed very obvious very early on what the point of it was just from the context within the game alone, so its effectiveness was undercut for me. It was something I just wanted to hurry up and finish so that I could get back to playing as the character I actually liked and had an interest in, Ellie. This Abby section of the game was not a brief diversion. It's a tangent consisting of many hours where you have to start from scratch in terms of your inventory, taking time to acquire weapons for your arsenal all over again, upgrading weapons all over again, acquiring parts to craft explosives, etc. all over again, learning and updating skills all over again, when you'd already spent the whole game up to this point building and optimising your arsenal with Ellie. It wasn't something I cared for. You do get to use different weapons with Abby to Ellie, which is cool. The flamethrower was a particularly fun one, but for me that really wasn't worth such an enormous tangent. A preferable option would have been giving Abby a full arsenal right from the start of her section, with different weapons to Ellie, but still equipped already. Better still, reducing the length of the Abby section to something far, far briefer. I started enjoying the game more again when back playing as Ellie, and I actually really rather enjoyed the whole section where she embarks upon her mission to infiltrate the Rattlers camp holding Abby prisoner. That was fun. It gave you some cool environments in Santa Barbara which were very different to anything else the game had placed you in beforehand. By the end of the game, I really didn't know what to make of it. As I mentioned, I felt some kind of bizarre payoff eventually, but I still don't know if that's enough for me to say definitively that I like the game overall. A second playthrough can bring new perspective, and I have only played the game once so far. I would actually be very interested in the perspective of people who do really like this game, because I have no doubt that there are many people who like it a lot. So if you do like the game, let me know in the comments why. Or if you dislike it, let me know why that is. Whether it lines up with some of the gripes I've expressed here, or whether it's for different reasons, or both. I think I've been reasonably balanced about the things I liked and disliked about this game. I certainly don't intend to deride it. Clearly a lot of work has gone into it, and it's impressive in many ways. I really just wanted to be honest about my experience with this game. It seems like a lot of people had the same issues with it. But again, I'm aware other people very much liked it. So that's good. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like if you did, subscribe for more videos like this, and other gaming videos as well, and click the bell end to receive alerts when the next video is posted. Thanks for watching, see you next time.